Ah, thank you, lady. Um, cool. And then I'll hand you over to John. John's got a presentation about propagation for us. Like I say, if you want to ask any questions as we go along, that's fine, but there'll also be loads of time at the end to ask questions, and have a bit of a chat as well, for those who want to. Um, yeah, so if I hand over to you, John, if you want to uh, just maybe just say a line or two about, I'm sure you'll cover it anyway, a line or two about yourself, where you are, and then I'll be quiet.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Um, I'm a vegetable propagator, um, and this is our nursery, Delfland Nurseries. Um, it's run by quite a few people. My wife and I are directors, and we've got anything up in the winter about 26 people working, and in the summer about 40 people working. Um, most of which are English, with about 6 East Europeans which have stayed in this country and continue to work for us. Um, the nurseries varies from 1972 age to about the one block is about 5 years old now, so that's quite a new block. Um, okay, um, we operate two different systems. One is modules and the other is blocks. This is an example of the modules. They're laid out on the floor of the greenhouse with pots underneath, so that they don't form a mat of root underneath the tray. If
Oh,
they
John,
form,
sorry, John. I think you might have stopped sharing your screen if you wanted to share again.
can you see it now?
Uh, oh, yeah, there we go.
And I literally haven't done anything, but I'll continue.
Can everyone else see that? Can everyone see
They're all
thumbs
on
up? Yeah,
mute.
yeah, a thumbs up.
Oh, good. Right, I'll continue talking to the wall then. Um, right, this is our nursery, and these are modules, which what you're looking at is brassica modules on pots to, let's say, do root pruning or make sure that they don't mat root underneath or root into the floor, at which point you lose control of them and they're difficult to plant. This is our seeding machine. Um, if you want to sow different module sizes, you need a different drum for each tray size. The the system works on a vacuum, and a vacuum, there is holes in the drum, um, and there is a vacuum applied to the holes. And as the drum spins round through the seed, it picks up one seed, and when it gets to the bottom, when the tray's passing underneath, it drops it off. Um, so you need different size holes for different seeds and different configurations for different trays. Right, this is the blocking machine that puts blocks into trays, which is this one. So these are peat blocks. They are chopped up into little squares, seed sown in the top, and in this case it's coriander, and they are covered in sand. Um, the sand acts as a weight on top of the seed, so that the root can penetrate the block. Um, blocks are 70% peat and 30% green waste. We are working with Coventry University, or we were working with Coventry University. We haven't got any funds at the moment to develop a peat-free product which we can make blocks out of. Blocking compost's quite difficult to make. It's got to be the right amount of sticky to stick to each other. But if you make it too sticky, it sticks to the machinery, bungs up the machinery, and it doesn't work. So if you look, going back to the machine, that machine will, on the left-hand side, the peat is wetted up. Where you can see agromech, they are chopped into blocks there and sewn with a vacuum seeder, a drum vacuum seeder. And on the right hand side of the screen, you'll see some green boxes. A mechanism picks up the blocks and puts them into them green boxes. It then travels towards you when it's where it's covered with sand or vermiculite and then stacked back up again.
Just ask quickly, John, the sand that you use, is that a particular like special kind of sand, or is it sharp sand, or?
The sand we use is silica sand,
Mm.
and it's probably the sort that you would use in a children's playground,
Yeah,
because it's, as far as I'm aware, sharp sand has too much chalk or limestone in it. The
right.
pH varies quite a bit.
Yeah.
So sharp sand's silica sand is a
Mm.
lot cleaner,
Mm.
and it doesn't cause us problems. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Right. We can also grow plants in these things, which are called grow coons. They're spun cellulose. So you would put their cellulose pot, call it, into a tray and then fill it full of peat. And then the one on the left, we would sow with our drum seeder lines. And the one on the right, we would fill and probably prick off. We do sow direct cucumber seeds into them because cucumber is quite easy to germinate. The cellulose breaks down in the ground. It breaks down faster when the temperatures are higher and the ground is wet. So, and also, if you put that against a mug of coffee, it will melt. So it gives you an idea. Right, then propagation's relatively easy. The thing that makes it difficult is the diseases and the pests that come in and mess you up. And you've got to hit schedules. People want plants ready on particular days, ready for collection. And if you're doing a program and you want Calabrese for as many weeks of the year as possible, you need to be sowing it on particular dates and planting it on particular dates. Our nursery is controlled by a computer, or sorry, the ordering process and the seeding, the sow sheets are all, and delivery sheets are all controlled from a central computer. So if you take an order, you have a delivery date for that order. So the order will get a confirmation to the customer, and the system will look at the order and decide when it should be sown and then we print sow sheets according to the confirmation of order. Um, the and as long as the the customer reads the confirmation of order, then and it's correct, we should go through quite comfortably without missing anything. Um,
How
there
many,
is,
sorry, John,
yeah,
how many customers do you reckon you have a year, roughly?
we
Different
we
customers.
we have about 400 customers a year, and they may be taking from I don't know, 200 different seed lots. You
Mm,
see, most organic growers will market through box schemes, farmers markets, and farm shops.
mm,
There is a few big ones that just do one thing, but it becomes quite complicated because you can't go to a farmer's market just with a bunch of carrots.
yeah.
You need lots of different things. So it gets quite complicated. And if you were a bigger propagator, you would probably be just doing lettuce or just doing brassicas.
Mm,
But we tend to do everything.
mm, yeah.
um, so, right. Propagation. I'd like to be as disease free as possible when I start. So I'll be buying seed, for example, that's as clean as possible. Um, there is quite a few people who save their own seed, um, but there is a risk that it might have seed-borne diseases on it. Um, take that risk. I can't take that risk because I've got schedules to keep to. Um, compost is the same. It's good if it's clean compost without, let's say, damping off diseases in it. Um, so if it's well composted, then it'll be okay. Um, when I put clean benches, we like to keep our greenhouses as clean as possible, as in no weeds growing in the gutters and things like that. And we get rid of the weeds by a weed burner. And as long as you do it when they're really tiny, it's pretty quick. Um, I know our greenhouse is completely, not completely, most of it is concreted, and the rest of it is covered in plastic to stop weeds coming through. Um, there is a way of looking at weeds as a source of biological control, as in the flowers probably attract hoverflies and things like that. But when you're doing propagation, you're in and out in probably sometimes 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and the pests get onto the plants before the biological control gets a chance to come in and sort it out. So what we tend to do is keep the greenhouse as clean as possible, um, and buy in biological control from, at the moment it's BioBest. They look after us. Um, when and cleaning, we tend to clean our greenhouses. We sterilise them once a year, and then if we're doing things like cucumbers, which are pretty um, susceptible to damping off diseases, we will be doing sterilising the floor with Jet 5, which is peroxyacetic acid, and that breaks down to vinegar and water, but oxidizes anything in its path, hopefully. So, yes, that's basically what I've just said. Um, we have Germination of seed. Quite a lot of seed doesn't mind what temperature it germinates at. Um, so germinating lettuce, it will germinate probably at, I don't know, I'm guessing 2 degrees centigrade, but it starts having problems germinating at 18 degrees centigrade. If you start getting much more than that, you will not get germination or get very sporadic germination. It needs to be below that. So our germination room will have, um, it's got coolers in it basically, to keep the temperature. We try and keep it about 16 degrees. Um, and then you've got other species like artichokes that really like germinating somewhere above 20 degrees, probably better off at 25 degrees. Um, so we wouldn't use a germination room. We tend to put them in a greenhouse that is kept warm anyway. So this is just showing our covering machine. So that would be attached to our blocking line, but we've got similar ones attached to the module lines. Basically, we can cover it with bark, sand, vermiculite, or perlite. And believe it or not, right, so sand is because it's heavy, and things like courgettes in blocks need a heavy covering, otherwise the seed pops through for example, the vermiculite, instead of putting its root down into the peat. So, and the problem with sand is that if you overwater it, it cuts off the oxygen supply to the seed early on, and then it is a bad germination. Vermiculite and perlite, I'd like to get away from them because they're use a lot of heat making them. They're both expanded rocks. But for example, with celery, vermiculite will constantly do about 3 or 4% better germination than perlite will. But we use perlite for covering tomatoes, tomato rootstocks, for a simple reason that vermiculite is very, very slippery when it's wet, and perlite is a little bit less slippery. So if it gets on the floor in the winter when it doesn't dry up very quickly, the floor then becomes like a skating ring. And so we use perlite. But you can get good germination from perlite and vermiculite, but perlite, you've just got to be careful that you don't overwater it. Next slide. Brassica problems. This is what we get. Never mind what you get. Rhizoctonia. Generally, you can keep that out. That's blackleg. You can keep it out of propagation by making sure your compost and especially your trays are very clean. So trays, we dip all our returning trays in Jet 5 for 15 minutes before we sow anything in them, and our boxes go through a box washer, and that is it doesn't quite do 15 degree. It doesn't quite do 15 minutes, but we leave them wet as they come out, so that it gives a bit more chance to sterilize it. But we don't have problems. Foma, that's could be seed borne, mostly seed borne. But if you're overwintering brassicas, it can come in from outside and spread very quietly without you realizing it. And then when you plant the crop or plant the plants, the crop dies about 2 weeks before you're due to cut it. And that's foamer is another black. They call it blackleg as well, but it's not the same blackleg as Rhizoctonia. Mildew in propagation. It's not necessarily a problem unless you get it on the cotyledons. But if you get it on the main leaves, the plant seems to cope. But it will then pass to the next crop. So if you constantly fill in a greenhouse full of brassica plants, the mildew will spread from one batch to the next to the next. And if it gets the one that's just germinating, the cotyledons get it, it could reduce, well, it can kill them off, basically. So mildew needs a wet surface for about 12 hours to germinate and then infect the plant. So if you water it first thing in the morning and let it dry out by the end of the day, you're going an awful long way to stopping any mildew spreading around. But after saying that, we try very hard and still get mildew, but we don't get it to such an extent that it kills plants off 99.9% of the time. Caterpillar, that one comes in when the cabbage white butterflies and or silver wire moth caterpillar comes in through the vents. You can use BT, which is Bacillus thuringiensis, in the form of, there's about 2 or 3 different products that have it, and that is, in my book, really good at sorting caterpillar out. Flea beetle, good luck. I think the only way to stop it is to net it with fine net, and that probably doesn't stop it, but it slows it down, so that the crop can grow out of it. And then there's cabbage root fly. The options are to put tracer on, which is okay, as the Organic Soil Association approved it. Don't
John,
particularly like doing it. Yes, go on.
sorry, John. There's just a question saying, what did you say you used for caterpillars?
Uh,
Was it
BT,
BT? Yeah.
BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, or whatever, and it comes in the form of dipel, DIPEL, is one of the products. It's,
And it's I'm trying to think. Is it a biological control or is it a
it's a
chemical?
biological control. It's not but it's the product that the Bacillus thuringiensis, or whatever it's produces, not, which is and it's basically, as far as I can work out, I thought it was an anti-feedant, but I'm not completely sure.
Mm. I'm just having a quick look because to put it in the right words,
Yeah,
according to the internet,
yeah. Go on.
it
That's
it
fine.
works. It's a microbial insecticide, and it works by creating a stomach poison that kills the larvae within 3 to 4 days of ingestion, without harming beneficial insects, pets, or humans. Apparently.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah. Anyway, it works, and the soil association are happy with it. So, and if you didn't do it, you'd lose you'd be
Yeah.
caterpillars everywhere, eating all your brassicas. Um,
I'll put a link to some information in the chat for those who want to see how it's spelt and stuff.
yeah. Okay. Leak problems we have on our nursery. We sometimes get fusarium, which is, I think, is seed borne, which spreads across a tray quite happily, and then they all sort of wilt, go saggy, and die. Rust is a problem that you would probably get, but there is quite a few varieties that are more rust resistant than others. Thrips is probably a problem that bothers growers more than it bothers me as a propagator. Temperatures for leeks. If you're sowing leeks really early, you need to keep the temperature, average temperature, above 14 degrees centigrade, otherwise they bolt. So that would be if you were sowing, say, starting in February, 1st of February, you would keep them at 14, 15. Well, it would, what we do is keep them at 15 because that's one of our greenhouses is kept at 15. But once you get to sowing, I don't know, in May, then it's not a problem. But if you remember, you've got to get an average of 14 degrees. So if you've got if it's pretty warm, it won't bolt anyway. So yeah. Onions, they're one of the ones that need a heavy covering of. I like to cover them with sand. Otherwise, they don't push the root into the compost. We multi-seed them, but it's a problem if you get too many seeds per cell or per block, because all you do in the field, you just get small onions, and small onions aren't easy to sell. Mildew, we haven't had a bad attack of mildew in the field for a while, but there are resistant varieties, and beware if the crop that you get gets mildew at an early stage, you could probably write it off. And last year, for the first time, I saw caterpillars eating onions outside. Yeah, the climate is warming.
Yeah. Bloody eat anything.
They eat everything, the caterpillars. Well, that's the first time I've seen it, and it's the only time I've seen it. So, right, celery, and celery septoria leaf spot is a seed-borne disease, and they're pretty good now at stopping it. They put the seed in a hot water bath and keep it somewhere around about 40 to 45 degrees, but it's a very precise number, and that kills the septoria without killing the celery seed. So the next problem is Pythium, and then that's just keep everything as clean as possible. Otherwise they just damp off. Celery green fly, not so much in a greenhouse, but when you plant it outside, everything that's flying around outside seems to go for the celery. But if you've got biological control from your verges and wildflowers and things like that, they'll probably take care of it. Scarred fly is a real problem to us, because the blocking compost, which is peat, but the other 30% is green waste, and green waste has a small number of scarred flies in it, and by the time we've blocked it and got the celery seedlings about 1 true leaf, the scarred fly larvae are chomping away, and they just eat the roots off the celery plant. and they just drop down dead. So we use something called Lalgard M52, which is a metarrhizal fungus. Comes in bottles, and we spray it on and water it in, and that's a fungus, so it doesn't work instantly. Takes about 3 or 4 days to work, but it does eventually work. Not particularly well, but if you didn't do it, you'd end up with 10% celery in your blocks. Celery early on needs temperatures of 15 degrees the first few sowings, and after that it needs to average 14 degrees. So you can have a high day and a slightly lower night, but I wouldn't push it. But by the time you get to the first week of May, it'll just look after itself and won't bolt. If I do celeriac, it's much the same as celery. The temperatures are different because if you get a low night on celery, it'll trigger a bolt. If you get a low night on celeriac and you get a nice warm day afterwards, it'll cancel the trigger. So you can reverse the bolt on celeriac, basically just by fleecing it outside. But there's lots of new varieties coming through at the moment, and I'm not sure. They're probably more bolt tolerant than the older ones were. Lettuce, I pointed out early on that the temperatures, you need to keep the temperature at this time of year below 18 degrees. Not difficult today, but in the middle of summer, especially last year, we were running our coolers quite hard to try and make sure they didn't get too warm. Depends what compost you're using, but you can get a release of ammonia from certain composts. The mechanism is that the compost manufacturer will probably use a protein source for the nitrogen source. If they do, the protein's broken down to ammonia, and then another bunch of bacteria turn the ammonia into nitrate. If it's too clean, the ammonia is released, and then 3 or 4 days later, the ammonia is turned into nitrate. But by then, it's scorched all the roots off the plant. So you either leave the compost for a long time while the process has taken place. That's from protein to ammonia to nitrate, or you put green waste in the compost, and that will have both sets of bacteria. So as soon as a bit of ammonia is released, the other lot of bacteria turn it into nitrate. But it's better to not use really fresh compost that's just had its fertilizer put in it. We do get some scarrid flies, but only when it's really hot. They tend to leave lettuce alone. But we've had problems in the past on some varieties. And sclerotinia, which is that white fluffy one with the black sclerosia in the middle of it, and that does affect the seed, affect the lettuce in the field. Right, fennel. The only time I manage to kill it off is if I overwater it. So far so good. Um, uh, just don't overwater it. Um, Squashes and courgettes. Um, it needs a good covering over because it's a big seed. You put a big covering over it. So I don't know, at least quarter to half an inch, something like that. Um, it does need it does need to be quite warm to germinate courgettes. So something over um, I don't know, 15 degrees or something like that. The quicker you germinate them, the usually the better the germination. So go for 20 if you can. And if you overwater them early, the the water stops the oxygen getting to the seed, especially with beans. It forms a layer around the seed, and the oxygen can't get to the seed, and it just goes rotten. It just dies on you. Um, Squash, beans, courgettes, the scarred fly love them, so you've got to do something about that. And I've also had, not very often, but one or two occasions where I've had seed-borne disease that's come from the seed, basically. And that would be bought in seed that theoretically is supposed to be checked. But the I can't remember what the diseases are, but they're bacterial and tend to put water spots on, you know, the leaf just gets spotty and starts deteriorating. So it's not too bad if it's dry, it doesn't spread, but if it's a wet year, it'll make a mess of a crop. Right, more pictures. Um, this is a grafted tomato plant. Um, the bottom bit, you could also see if you look from the plug about a short way up, there's a little kink, and that's where it was grafted. Um, we graft tomatoes for vigor and but mainly in organic systems for root disease. Um, Vigor's interesting because you can take two shoots off one plant and grow them as two plants. So, in other words, if you're paying a lot of money for a grafted tomato plant, you can actually grow two shoots off it, and you're getting two tomato plants for the price of one, um, which most growers do if they're grafting. Um, the bottom bit of the slide shows we have a grafting room which we put our tomato and cucumbers and peppers into. They're on Danish trolleys, completely wrapped up and sealed, so that it's 100% humidity in them. And eventually, when we've left them for 5, 6, 7 days, we put a little cut in them, which lets the humidity go and gradually increases the size of that cut to wean them off. Because if you're at 100% humidity and go straight into a greenhouse, they will flag and die. We get tomato problems, not so much anymore, but when we were using organic fertilizer, which came from the waste from sugar beet factories, and I think it's called Kylie Vinasse. It still has residues of uh, herbicides from sugar beet, but it's the thistles in the sugar beet that they're trying to kill off, and it goes all the way through the factory and all the way to me, and then ends up in
Mm.
that little block. So just be careful, is what I'm saying. And some of them herbicides are cleared on grasses, lawns, for example, and will end up in municipal composting units. And then I've had one grower who bought a load of compost in good faith, spread it over his greenhouse, and all his tomatoes went wrong. And the herbicide doesn't disappear quickly. It takes a few years before it works its way out. Um,
Is that the aminopyralid and the clopyralid?
that's the one. Yeah, I couldn't
Yeah.
think of the name.
Yeah, there's been quite an I think it was in the late 2000s, people were saying they were buying in green waste and or manure. So
Mm,
where horses have been fed hay that have been treated. So, the grass has been sprayed with this herbicide that's got, I never know if it's pyralid or pyralid. People say different things. But anyway, aminopyralid or clopyralid.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and yeah, so horses or, mostly horses, but maybe cows were fed the hay. Doesn't affect them. It goes through them. Um, Growers get hold of the manure, even if they've composted it. They then try and grow it's tomatoes and it's also legumes, and they have really characteristic twisted growth. So if you're buying in green waste compost or manure from somewhere and you're not 100% sure what it might be like, a lot of people try germination tests with clover because that's a quick grower. And then if that's okay, it's probably okay to use with your tomatoes.
yeah. Broad beans are what quite a few people use as well.
Mm,
Broad beans show the herbicide up quickly as
yeah.
well. So that's another one. And the thing is, the tomatoes will accumulate it and go wrong at about halfway up as well. So it's probably better to try it with something else, like beans. Um, we blight, which you probably will get at some point in. There is some quite good blight tolerant tomatoes, which will give you, if you're growing in a tunnel or outside, it'll give you an extra 3 or 4 weeks picking before you've got to throw them away. So it's well worth investigating blight tolerant tomatoes. Um, Whitefly, um, we let Incarcia formosa go, which is you could buy it from biological control people, and we find that very effective. In fact, if you can keep whitefly out of your nursery, it's quite easy. Um, oops. So these are the trays that have got grow coons in them, and we're growing the left hand side has got cucumbers in them, and the right hand side looks like it's got peppers in the background and tomatoes in the foreground. But we grow them in plastic, in recyclable, no, not recyclable. Yeah, we recycle the green trays that they're grown in. We would like to get a hard plastic tray and then just send it back round in circles and sterilize it every time. But at the moment, we haven't got there yet. Cucumbers, peppers, aubergines, damping off disease, not that much of a problem. Aubergines are a magnet for pests, so you could either look on the bright side and plant one aubergine in your polytunnel or whatever it is, and just inspect the aubergine, and then you'll find out what you've got in your tunnel, because they'll all head for the aubergine. Or you put up with the fact that you've got a crop full of aubergines, and you're just going to have to put biological control in for everything, or attract it in from outside, or however you want to do it. But if you're growing aubergines, you'll get pests. Oh, cucumbers. Yeah, they get all them lot.
I don't think I
Pythium,
know. What's Pythium? Sorry.
Pythium is the damping off disease.
Ah,
There's Pythium, Phytophthora, and Rhizoctonia are the three that um, plants damp off with. So you've got to decide which one. Yeah, if you were a conventional grower, which I have been for, I do, I have been. You before you decide what you're going to treat it with, um, you have to decide which of the ones he's damping, he's doing the damping off. But in terms of um, Pythium, you can, let me think. I think Pythium pre-stop is quite active against Pythium. Um, Fusarium, which is not a damping off disease, but that where you would do with T34, and that was proven to be very good against fusariums. Mildew, there's no, not resistant varieties, tolerant varieties, which is quite useful to know. But I don't know what to do if you've got a bad attack. Thrips on cucumbers, Swirsky mites are very good for keeping cucumbers clean of thrips. If you've got too many thrips in your cucumbers, they eat the young cucumber flowers and then the cucumber comes bent. So it's worth thinking about if you're getting bent cucumbers. Green fly, it's a black green fly called Aphis gossypii, and it's difficult. You do sometimes get peach potato aphid on cucumbers as well, but just don't let it get out of control. Keep the beneficial insects going in. And capsid bugs just sometimes appear and sometimes disappear and take a chunk out the side of the head of the cucumber, and you'll never see them because as soon as you walk anywhere near them, they go and hide behind the plant. But you can see the damage by the fact that the stem will be kinked with a damage point. And sometimes when you're still trying to twist them up the string, it'll just break at that point. That's me finished, I think.
oh, thanks,
Let's,
John.
right, now I'm going to try and get back so I can see you all.
If you stop sharing, or I can maybe make you stop sharing. I'll make you stop sharing. There we go. Is that all good? Can you see everybody?
I can see Jenny.
Okay.
I can see, just let's see if I can expand this a bit. See if anybody else will appear. Ah, yes, that's good. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you, John. If anyone's got any questions or anything they want to check or ask, please go for it. I'm happy to. I've also got some questions, but if anyone's got any burning ones, then please jump in or
Mm-hmm.
unmute yourself.
Right, you're very welcome to come and have a look round because I feel like I've been talking to a brick wall for half an hour,
I
so
know.
because I couldn't see anybody's face.
I
So
know. I know.
you
It's
don't.
always it'd be really nice to come actually. It's just trying to arrange all the visits at the minute.
Mhm.
Maybe we'll do an extra OGA visit out to you and
Right,
everyone.
you don't need to. If you just want to, just ring me up if you're coming
Yeah.
past. Just so yeah, don't have to do it as an organised visit. You can just call in. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I just wonder does anybody on their farm use Delfland transplants already? Do they reckon, do you know the green, the famous green
Yeah,
trays, which they do want back at some point?
yeah, yes, we do. But yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So
We
yeah,
Go
go
on,
on.
Chloe.
we don't use many plants. It was we just had some of the grafted aubergines um
Yeah,
recently.
it's worth doing grafted aubergines because they yield higher than the non-grafted ones, and they get less disease. Um,
Mm,
that's even in the short period that you're growing.
Mm,
Normally, these grafted plants, being expensive, would be uh, grown for long season. I don't know how long you grow them for, but yeah,
mm,
I do in the winter. I'm doing heated crops for rockwool tomato growers. So I'm not just organic. I'm about 60% organic. At this time of year, I'm probably 70 or 80% organic. But in the winter, I'm doing rockwool tomatoes um, for commercial, big sort of big-ish commercial nurseries. So um, I've I was not always, I've not started as an organic propagator. I was a conventional propagator, and Graham Hughes, if you've ever came across him, said, "Can you raise me some plants?" And that's probably how it started. And you start to realise, yeah, I get water samples from my borehole water, and it's got chemicals in it from 40 years ago. Yeah,
uh,
and
did you have a
you could,
question, Rowan, as well?
No, I was just gonna say we got loads of tomatoes from Delfland recently. We've done some ourselves here from seed. I can't remember the varieties actually off the top of my head, but yeah, when they came, I think the note was that they were like further along than you'd expected. They were huge.
okay.
So
Okay. Well, as long as you can handle them, you'll get an early crop. But
yeah, yeah,
it's, I don't like sending them huge, so um,
Mm.
they get too much damage in transport. So
what's the rootstock? Is it like can you use anything or when you grow after tomatoes or aubergines or anything, do you use a specific rootstock or it varies?
uh, it varies. We either use we if we could have got Beaufort, we would have used Beaufort, but I think we were using. Um, It'll come back to me in a minute, but it's a Reich Swan one, and they're all pretty good at disease resistance. Some are better than others. They've all got different levels of vigor, and some are more vigorous than others. Um, oh, brain, you can't get it. When I'm in the bath tonight, that'll
Yeah.
be when it comes back to me. Um, and I could look it up on the computer, but then I'd probably lose all you lot. So,
Is
yeah.
that for aubergines or is that for tomatoes?
Aubergines is a aubergine rootstock. It's an actual wild aubergine.
Mm.
Tomatoes are wild tomato rootstocks. So, and peppers, I wouldn't suggest that you graft, because the Dutch graft all the peppers because they've got high levels of nematodes, and the rootstock is resistant to nematodes. It's actually a chili pepper is the rootstock of a
Mm.
pepper. So they probably just went round all the wild chilies and found one that was resistant to nematodes and just used it. So if you're not getting nematodes, you're not getting an advantage.
Mm.
So um, and cucumbers, we play around we thought we got it cracked till this year, but they're ever so difficult to graft. We started using an actual cucumber as a rootstock, but previous to that, there would be some sort of squash rootstock, a wild cucurbite based, coming from the squash family. But I've never grown one to find out what it turns into.
Did you have another question, Chloe?
Yeah, I was just wondering about the process of grafting. So I've grafted fruit trees, but never vegetables. I was just wondering how it works and the timeline of it as well.
Okay, yeah, I could do tomatoes quite comfortably. You sow the tops and the bottoms on the same day at 20. This is if you're doing it commercially at 24 degrees centigrade. After 14 days, there'll be quite a small seedling with a middle leaf coming out of it. Then stick them into a coal somewhere about 10 or 15 degrees centigrade, so harden them off. Then chop them at 45 degrees and clip them together. Just so you would chop the bottom, you can see me, bottom off at 45 degrees up there, and then the top at 45 degrees. Put them together like that, and there's special little clips to go over them, right? Then put them in 100% humidity at about 23, 24 degrees for 5 days, and you'll be able to see the first few days they're hanging a little bit, flag a little bit, not too much, but they might flag instantly you do it, but they should by the same night at 100% humidity. You basically wrap them in plastic. They'll be picked up but you can see when they start growing. That means that the two surfaces have knitted together, and then the plant will start growing. So we put them in boxes with high sides, cover them with plastic, and so that they're sitting in this 100% humidity with lights on. So it depends what time of year you would be doing it. And if you were doing it in a greenhouse, you've then got, and you were doing it in spring, you've got to be very careful it doesn't get too hot under there, because the bacteria will rot it. So let's say top temperature 30 degrees.
And what's your general success rate?
Tomatoes, we can almost guarantee 95%. The other thing you've got to be careful of is how much nitrogen they've got when you graft them. If you think along the lines of you make a cut in an apple, it'll just go rotten because there's a lot of nitrate, a lot of sugars, and a lot of and the bacteria just go, wow, that's wonderful, and start rotting the apple. If your tomato is very lush and full of fertilizer, the bacteria will go, yeah, that sounds like a plan, and they'll go and start attacking it. If there's not much nitrogen in there, i.e. that it's low on fertilizer, the plants knit together before anything manages to attack it.
Mhm.
Um,
And what about with aubergines?
They look like they. Same applies. We don't allow too much nitrogen. Um, you could follow a tomato, in other words, germinate them 24, and drop them and harden them off. They need to be um, bigger than tomatoes. So you've got one true leaf with a second true leaf coming out of it, and then you can graft them. If you do it too small, they just don't take. And quite often they look absolute awful for the first 2 or 3 days, and then gradually they'll pick up. And but you would then they take about a week, and then you would start cutting the plastic to let the humidity out. With tomatoes, it's 5 days, and then uncover them at 7 days. With aubergines, it's 7 days, and then start uncovering them until you're happy that they're going to live, which might be another 5 days. Sometimes they knit really easily, and sometimes they just buggers. And we have in the past just taken out all the ones that have taken and left the other ones under 100% plastic until they improve, and then take the ones out that have taken again. Don't like doing that because that's going over them twice, but sometimes sometimes you can't put your finger on why it's not worked. So
That's biology.
Especially cucumbers. If you want a challenge, do some cucumbers.
Do you have a favorite thing that you like growing, or that you think is like your bread and butter, pays the bills kind of thing?
I like growing tomatoes. I
Mm.
even breed tomatoes,
Mm.
but you can't grow tomatoes all year, and you can you nothing to do for 6 months of the year. So
Yeah.
can't earn a living doing working for 6 months. Not these days, anyway. So bread and butter is brassica plants, I suppose. Brassicas, lettuce. What you do if you've got a greenhouse, you try and keep it as full as you can for as many months of the year as you can. It's unless I started growing strawberry plants, which I don't want to because I think the market's overcooked. You virtually finish at the end of July, beginning of August, and start again in November. There is probably 10% of the area is covered over that period. So everybody goes on holiday. We maintain everything. We leave as much maintenance as possible for that period. We sterilize all our greenhouses in that period. And lo and behold, by the time we've done it, we're running around and we're sowing tomatoes again. So yeah, but it's quite good because we get or the staff get holidays in the school holidays. But the penalty is they're working at Christmas.
Yeah.
But not too bad. Bad at Christmas. It's we get them all doing the week before Christmas. We'll have there'll be a big long gang of work to do, so that they can have Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and then there's a weekend, and then there's so we try and cram it all into the week before Christmas as much as we can get done. So if they want to do Christmas shopping, they have to do it the week before that. So it works. People, you know,
Yeah. Did
but
you?
you'll all be sat with your feet up in front of the telly, won't you?
Well, depends. Depends what other jobs we're doing over the winter.
Yeah. Okay.
Did anyone else have a question? I thought I saw a hand wobble, but it might just be a general hair flick.
I wanted to ask on how you sort of decide on what varieties you offer and how much experimenting you do with that.
The experimentation takes place in my garden. Go to all the variety trials, which are, you've got to put an organic hat on. Elsom's used to have an organic plot, which they used to grow their organic plants in. And most of the time it looked completely rubbish. But every now and again, one variety would be doing really well. Now, and you're thinking, right, that one will do, right? Because for example, brassicas are bred under high nitrogen conditions because that's what the commercial boys do. So all the breeding is to grow, I don't know, 200 units of nitrogen, which is pretty damn high. And when you put it into an organic system, tends to be that the nitrogen levels are quite low in the field. So brassica's got to cope with low nitrogen levels. So my garden, and if you go around the variety trials, you're keeping them thoughts in your mind. I do a lot of listening to, not so much anymore, but the person who's advising does a lot of listening to all the organic growers, and because you basically, if we're talking to, I don't know, 30, 40 growers, and they're all saying, oh, this one's doing well, or this one's not going so well, you listen, you learn, and then we try and choose the ones that are going to be successful. But if you can't say, depends how many plants you buy, but if you're if we've got one or two growers that we chuck all our trial varieties to and say, here, I'll try this. And you get some feedback. And you talk when the seed houses are going, oh, we've got this new variety. You're sort of going, well, leaks. Is it how susceptible is it to rust? How, you know? And sometimes they could tell you all these things, and you start going through things, and you think, well, the leek needs to be rust resistant and pretty tolerant, cold tolerant, and you go down the list, and you can thin them out to, start with 20 varieties. You can get down to 2 or 3 or 4, and then there'll be some new ones coming in that nobody knows anything about. But if you just keep talking to each with an intelligent hat on. But I'm not the old Victorian, for example, tomato varieties. The heritage varieties, if I was a Victorian, which the way they looked at it, they wanted to grow the best variety. We as growers now are looking back on these heritage varieties and saying, well, they're really good. And things are progressing. There is disease resistance coming in. They do breed in disease resistance, and it might not be the breeding is for organic production, but they are improving various little bit here and a little bit there. And if you watch what they're doing and pick the bits that are suitable, you'll get a better variety. Because let's face it, if your crop's going to die of mildew, you're going to plant a variety that's mildew resistant, aren't you? Or not, because it's a heritage variety that isn't. Do I? Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Yes.
No. Are there
Yeah.
any it sounds like you have quite a range. I was just wondering, apart from the obvious things that don't transplant well, so you know,
forget carrots.
carrots and parsnips and
forget them.
is there anything you don't grow that you potentially could but doesn't make sense to? Like I suppose if there's probably quite a lot of herbs, but maybe there isn't the demand for them, or
well, I mean, there's some cutting raised tarragon, for example, that I don't do. But I'll tell you, we do. Rosemary doesn't germinate very well, so it's difficult. What we do, we have done a lot of medicinal herbs in the past, as long as there's enough to go at. We do a lot of wildflowers, grass, wetland wild plants. So a lot of grasses, a lot of mints and all sorts of stuff. We do such as chamomile, hyssop, for oil production, scented oil production and perfume oil production. So we get involved in quite a lot of stuff. I'll give most things a go. And if we're talking about, for example, the plants for wetland, let's say we sow 30 different batches of seed, there will be 5 or 6 that don't germinate at all, because the seed is not regulated like vegetable seed. It's got to be vegetable seed's got to be a certain purity, certain amount of disease resistance, and it's got to have a level of germination, otherwise they're not allowed to sell it. Whereas you get into wildflower seed, and they just go out into the field and harvest the wildflower seed and clean it up a bit, and then we get it. And then, from our point of view, you never know whether it's the seed lot that is a problem, as in it isn't going to germinate, or you've just put it in the wrong conditions to germinate. I've done evening primrose in the past and looked at it, eventually thrown it away on a big pile, and about 3 weeks later the pile erupted in evening primrose. So, I obviously did something wrong. But you don't necessarily know whether it's the seed or the conditions you're right. So, but we'll have a go at most things. So,
and is everything grown to order, or do you do roughly what you think will be ordered so people can put in last minute orders? Or
the only things that everything's generally grown to order. We speculate on strawberries, rosemary, and then we have a shop on site that we propagate stuff for the shop, which means that if somebody if we mess up on the nurse, onto somebody's order, we can nick it off the shop because
Yeah.
the shop hasn't been sold.
Mm.
You're speculating on how much of everything they might buy,
Mm.
and if it's not there, they're not going to buy it, are they?
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Mm.
that's one of our get out of. But I used to grow a lot of spare plants, but spare plants are now either an accident or somebody's cancelled, or
Mm.
so and you spare plants, you've only got what stuff that people don't want. So if you've got
Mm.
spare cabbages, they all want cauliflowers. If you've got spare cauliflowers, they all want
Yeah.
cabbages. So you sort of can't win.
Yeah.
But in our local area, when I first started, there was a lot of people had big gardens and grew an acre of cabbage in their back garden and took it to Wisbeach Market for to sell, and they would
Mm.
supplement their income like that.
Mm.
But then the supermarkets really got a grip.
Mm.
That all disappeared. So,
Mm.
but we used to grow a lot of spare plants, and people used to come and say, "Oh, I have a tray of cabbage, or 6 trays
Yeah.
of cabbage, 6 trays of cauliflowers." And, we used to Saturday mornings used to lay them out on the yard and,
Mm.
and flog them, basically.
Yeah.
So farmers market type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Were there any other questions? Sorry, I just asked a load in succession then, but
Mm-hmm.
any others? We've got a couple more minutes if anyone does want to ask anything or check anything. I was going to ask you, John, what causes the most problems? Is there a disease or a pest that's like, if you could think
Today,
of one
today,
thing?
today, scarred flies.
Oh.
Um, and go back a bit, it was grafting cucumbers because we
Yeah.
thought we got it cracked, and then they just kept failing, and we couldn't put our finger on why it was. We were altering this and altering that and trying to get it, and just couldn't. And I still can't tell you what it was. So, but we threw away at least half the cucumbers we did till 2 weeks ago.
Mm. Oh, there you go. See, that's quite positive for us.
Yeah, don't think I'm good at it all the time. I've just been around the block a bit more often. So I've probably picked up a few things. Anyway.
Cool. Well, unless anyone else has any last questions, thank you very much, John, for your time and your presentation and letting us pick your brains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if you want to call in at any point, just give us a ring and make sure I'm there, and then I'll show you around.
Oh, that's really kind.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for coming. I will stop recording now.
And edit it.